All right, we are on another session of our Spacetech Visionaries. I'm joined by my co-host Jim Green, and just want to shout out to John, who I believe is somewhere in the world, but hopefully we'll be getting him back soon. So, welcome to this episode, Jim.
Thanks so much, Wasim. Right now, I'm not at home, which is in the Washington, D.C. area. I'm in Houston, Texas. I'm teaching a cohort of students, many of which are from Saudi Arabia. And they're learning all kinds of engineering practices and doing things and learning about space and how that applies to what they want to do as they graduate and end up in the Saudi Space Agency. So this is a really great group of students, and I'm just having a great time. And this is my lunch hour, so I'm going to squeeze in this really important podcast activity that we do. And once again, we're going to talk about AI. Where are we with AI? What's happening? What's the current trends?
Well, it started with a big buzz. I'm going to share this video, and we'll start from here.
The AI boom is well and truly here, and it's sending some tech stocks soaring to new heights. But is AI hype turning into a market bubble that could come crashing down?
The AI will be able to do everything.
Challenges like artificial intelligence.
Incredible things that AI can do.
AI is so important.
But AI is still a long way off from solving a lot of the issues it's hoped to tackle, while remaining extremely costly to scale and develop. Then there's some debate over how much profit or added productivity these systems could ever possibly generate to justify the money being poured into them. So, could the AI boom end up being a bubble and a bust? Here's what you need to know.
What do you think, Jim?
Well, this is a normal cycle, okay? New things that come on board, look for applications in many different ways, even though they were developed for certain processes and procedures. AI currently today is being much more generalized, and people are starting to explore its use in different venues, from manufacturing to of course, even using it to analyze data, even using it to generate code, even using it to generate images, and so it's still, in my mind, a pretty fantastic application that we need to know about. Now, the fact that many companies may be promoting it, or maybe what I call leaning forward, meaning using it or thinking about or talking about it in ways that it hasn't come to fruition yet, doesn't mean it won't. And it doesn't mean that it'll be a bubble and burst and everyone will walk away from AI. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, and I think one of the key things is when we look at it, we see some of the futuristic stuff, like, hey, you're going to get robots. Here's another example of something that people have been talking about. This has literally just come out.
Increasingly crowded field of humanoid robot, Figure 2. We dig into all the details, where this robot fits into an increasingly crowded field of humanoid robots, and what comes next. As you can see, the wires are more tucked away in this model, indicating the company is moving away from the prototyping phase, when you might want easy access to different components for fixes and adjustments, towards something closer to a production model. Tucking away the wires is a common evolution we've seen in other second-generation humanoid robots, including the Tesla bot and Atlas from Boston.
Now, when you look at, for me, as this becomes more something that's more accessible, it becomes something that's more shareable, the price goes down, that will change the ability for us to use some of these things. And then, for me, it's just timing in terms of when you get mass access.
Well, everyone, when they look at that, thinks of an application. And the immediate application I think of is, I'm what's not called a spring chicken anymore. And as I age, my body is going to wear out like everyone's. I'm going to need some help. I may end up being alone. Currently, I'm married, a wonderful woman, and she and I are both healthy. But that'll change over time. I can imagine wanting to stay in my house, and the only thing that will enable me to do that is constant care. And a robot like that could do it. A robot like that can fetch things, monitor what's happening, be able to, be an alert system if medically I'm having trouble, and even pick me up and put me in bed if that happens to be the case in the future, but allows me then the independence. Now, currently in the care industry in this particular area, that's being done by people coming in and being humans, helping humans. But you can't be there 24 hours a day, and you can't be in constant care like that. But you could with a robot, because that's what they do. So that application, to me, is in 10 years, I might be selecting the color of robot I want.
Yeah, and I think also application-wise, I think when we talk about the AI tech bubble, we've seen a lot of companies sprout out. We've seen a lot of investment go in, and of course, a large percentage of those may or may not be around, but the really good ones stay, and then that will accelerate. I don't think this is like the dot-com bubble where things just disappeared and didn't evolve, and even there you had to evolve. You had things that evolved. I think this is just a start, and from a perspective of space, there are just going to be so many applications where AI is going to be absolutely essential. And Jim, you talked about some of those in previous episodes, but for those who don't know, what are the key things that you see AI playing a role in space?
Well, we're going to have to become more reliant on our machines to make decisions, to perform a whole variety of functions. As they do those functions better and better over time, we're gonna heap more responsibilities on them. I can imagine that rovers on Mars will improve to the point where they'll be working night and day. They'll have plutonium-238 power supply as we do today, and so the power won't be a problem. There's no fatigue involved. They'll have analytical instruments. They'll have communication capability all the way back to Earth, or even through satellites that are orbiting Mars as we do today. We use a relay. And they'll be able to go great distances. They'll be able to make all sorts of measurements, collect all sorts of data, and send it back. And the more they do that, the more scientific knowledge we'll gain, and then leverage that to be able to actually have humans on the surface. Now, they're not going to, in my opinion, they're not going to substitute for humans. When you think about the ability of a trained geologist to be on Mars and say, ooh, this is an interesting rock. We haven't seen this before. And my experience tells us that, we need to bring it back and break it open and look at, its composition, its mineralogy, et cetera, et cetera. But this rock over here, we've got hundreds of those. So just as an example, humans and robots, now whether they're in a form like a human or they're have wheels that are moving, are actually going to perform the work together. The robot has certain capabilities that provide an infrastructure. The more infrastructure we can rely on in terms of artificial intelligence, making connections and communication, or doing analysis and providing data to the researcher, who then takes that data and creates information from it, and then acts on that information. That's really I think what will happen in the next step.
Jim, when we look at things like energy, if you're looking at all these AI-based applications, we're going to have to use a lot more energy. How do you think space can play a role in that? Because I know we've looked at solar and other means of energy in space. Do you think that would be something that, as we constantly increase our use of AI, that's something that will probably now gain more steam in the fact that we're going to have to think about how we're going to get more energy?
Yeah. So we on this earth use energy, and energy, particularly electricity, has been the driver of our ability to create technologies, our ability to create solutions and new tools and capabilities that have helped the species enormously. So energy is really critical. There's all kinds of research going on in the energy area. In fact, the concept that for the last 40, 50 years, it has really been moving then from fossil fuels into fusion reactors. This is where you take material, jam it together, create new material. And Einstein wrote down the equation energy equals mass times a constant, which is the speed of light squared. And so that means you take mass and annihilate it, create energy, and then we can do stuff with that energy. Well, there's plenty of mass out there. And so although it's a fundamental equation that is actually operating really well at the center of stars, can we harness that? Well, that has really been a tough nut to crack. But along the way, we've learned to take solar energy with solar panels and be able to use that with spacecraft. But can we really take large solar arrays from spacecraft and beam that energy down to the ground and use it? And many space agencies have been studying that for, at least 20 years. And in many countries, many countries don't have oil reserves. They don't have natural sources of energy. And so they need to look for, because they have to import oil or they have to import coal, or they move to nuclear power plants where the normal decay of radioactive material generates heat that then heats water, that then runs steam, and then you move into the realm of generating electricity. That's another power that actually we've been able to harness, and that's not fusion, that's fission. That's where things break apart, and you use that energy and you generate electricity from it. But yeah, new things are always well worth studying, and new applications. What kind of power systems will we have on the moon or on Mars? And some of the things that we talked about in terms of harnessing power from the sunlight can be beamed down, for instance, on the moon, and can charge up huge batteries that can run major complexes, and might be the best way to go. Since the moon has periods of time where there's many hours of darkness and many hours of light, and so consequently you need a power solution that can enable the habitats to work and cars to run and experiments to go even during long nights on the moon. So power is incredibly important, indeed, that power is necessary to run AI. The AI activities that we enjoy today are coming from massive banks of computers that's gobbling up enormous amount of electricity. And it's needed because these computers, which need power, are doing all kinds of parallel analysis that we've asked it to do. And this is what's really driving the AI capability, is the ability to have these computers do the results in gazillion calculations and come back with some potential answers that might be really good.
Now, we started this program in the start by talking about, is the AI bubble bursting? I know there's been a correction in the stock market, and people are thinking, have we over invested in AI? What we're looking at is the practical use cases and where we're seeing it being used. So I'm going to share someone Jim knows quite well, who Jim has spent time with on one of his shows. Neil deGrasse Tyson talked about this part, and I want to get, Jim, your view on your thoughts.
Yeah, I haven't seen this interview, so you'll get my honest opinion.
All right.
Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson, it's a great pleasure to have you here, astrophysicists. Let me ask you straight up, when you think about AI and space, what do you think?
Well, as an astrophysicist, we've been active users of computers and everything it could deliver to our field from as early as computers could do anything, practically. I mean, military used them first. Physicists might have been in there a little sooner than us, but the way we view computing is, oh, it can make your job easier. You can calculate something that would otherwise take you 1,000 years and it does it in 10 seconds. You can address a problem that's otherwise unaddressable. So the role of computers in our lives as research scientists has always been, let the computer do it if it can. Of course, you have to program it to achieve this. So I've probably written 50,000 lines of code in my life, something like this. So as we approach this modern era where computers are doing way more than just a math calculation, I see it as, oh, it can do more now. Great, okay. And if it can compose an instruction manual for something and you don't want to do it, now that AI has made significant inroads to language, let it do it. I don't have a problem with that.
I'm sensing great optimism in your voice about AI and its role in.
Yeah, you don't get that a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, well, okay. So in all fairness, there are people who would describe themselves as AI experts. Almost every such person I've met is terrified about the future of AI. So maybe you shouldn't listen to me. Maybe you should only listen to them.
Let's talk about this, though. What's exciting you about the advancements that AI is making in the space industry, just that whole realm? I mean, this has been your life's work. What is exciting you?
So AI, I think, means different things to different people. So for me, AI is the slow encroachment of computers to substitute brain work. It's to make your.
Before we continue, Jim, what do you think about what he said?
Yeah, I think he's right on. Computers. I couldn't have done most of the papers I wrote without a computer. I'd still be on paper 5 rather than paper 130. In fact, the last couple papers I wrote were purely from model analysis. So yeah, computers have always been at the heart of astrophysics, but also planetary science. So many of our sciences that gather data and then analyze data and then model data. So the boon in computers have really exploded our scientific knowledge. That next step he is starting to address, which is, since it now can do more, we're going to let it do more. The key, though, is what we learned as computer users in creating models that mock the atmosphere of Mars and its circulation, and global circulation models and predictions of where hurricanes and tornadoes will go next. All that stuff with complicated code. We know we need to test it. We know there's a basic algorithm in terms of any code you write, it is an error. And you can drive down the errors by the number of times you run it under different conditions. And so the more you use it, the more you get results, and the more you analyze those results and see those errors, the more then you can create a code that is working to the best of its ability to model whatever environment it's being designed to do. AI has to be approached in the same way, okay? Currently, it's a black box for which it gives results, and from the results, you have to determine, is it working correctly? And how can we test that? You can test it sometimes independently. You can test it sometimes by letting it test itself, by giving it new instructions that then inform you on the quality of the previous results as you might need them. So you have to be creative on how you're going to use that environment. And I think the scientists that have really been involved in computers to do their work in terms of analyzing data and creating models are probably going to be one of the first groups that really will use it well and really use it appropriately. The scientists that come out of school and then grab a code and just use it and then write a paper without understanding what that code really does, they have problems. They have problems in many different areas in terms of their scientific reputation. I think problems come up, and other people write scientific articles refuting some of the results that come out of that, and so it becomes very controversial. So they learn early on that they can't approach it that way. They really need to know what they've done. Now, like Neil, I've probably written at least 50,000 lines of code, mostly in languages that like Fortran has been my main code. Well, I grew up in the university environment in the 70s, for which COBOL was the business language, which we're not going to use, but Fortran was the scientific computer language, which we're going to use. Now, Fortran is still used in supercomputers. So, but it's a really arcane language, and it is prone to errors quite easily. And so you really have to come up with ideas on how to test that software and be able to get it right. So therefore, AI should be treated in the same manner. And most of our scientists and engineers that have been in this business will be able to handle it. So I don't think they're in the process of giving up on AI. I think they're in the process of really checking it out and using it in their jobs and making advancements accordingly.
All right, so let's go on with what else he says.
Brain work easier. And is that really any different from when machines started taking over our labor? First, the domesticated animals replaced.
On that point, Jim, I want to, when people think about workforce displacement and what it means for the workforce. I mean, if you're someone who's now starting his career, what advice would you give them? Because really, this is profession agnostic, right?
Yeah.
Understanding what skills are going to be needed for.
Yeah. So, for decades, as you go through the university environment, you get your masters, and those people that think they'll go on and get PhDs, they end up specializing. They become really good in a particular niche or topic. Well, revolutions in artificial intelligence might actually take over most of those kind of functions or capabilities. We need those people to be able to do the testing, et cetera, et cetera. But I think the individuals that are going to work well in this new environment have a broad spectrum of interests, abilities, capabilities, and become agile. They actually learn that their capabilities can be applied in other areas, and they look for ways to do that. This is really important because this breaks down these what I call silos that happen in many jobs, in many applications, and brings in new ideas. And you bring in new ideas from different groups. The start of that in NASA really occurred when Dan Golden said, we really need a theme in NASA, and that theme is we're going to look for life beyond Earth. And we're going to have to create a group of scientists that know how to do that. And we recognize that doesn't mean you're biologist and only biologist. You have to be astronomers and planetary scientists, solar physicists. You have to be biologists, but you also have to be statisticians. You have to understand and analyze data spectrally and understand atmospheres. And now you end up with multiple disciplines. Currently, astrobiology has groups, and those groups of people are a conglomeration of experts that then in their own discipline, as they work together, make enormous and important contributions to looking for life beyond Earth. This is why I think we've done so well in many different aspects of it and are driven to find other Earths like ours, which have the right spectral information that tells us there's life, maybe even intelligent life on those planets. That's rapidly come about in a handful of years in particular. And we now know what the next big steps are. We need more capable telescopes. We need more spectral information. On Mars, for instance, Mars may have had life in the past. We've got indications that maybe life has been there in the past. Maybe the samples we bring back from Mars will tell us, yes, life has been on Mars. And in fact, we have some indications now that tell us maybe life is there, but it's not on the surface. It's in aquifers, it's underground, it's in the crust, it's in the extreme areas, because we know life, when things get tough, go into the rocks and can survive in extreme environments. So we now know so much more about those that we're setting up those next big steps. And now what's the next big telescope beyond JWST? Bringing back the samples are going to inform us on what's the next big thing that we're going to do on Mars. Well, we know we're going to have to get under the surface. Rosalind Franklin, which is the European Space Agency's wonderful rover, is going to do that. It's going to drill down, bring up samples from many meters below, put it in instruments, some of which NASA have developed, some of which other nations have developed. Once again, these are multinational scientists and capabilities that have come together. I think we're going to find out some really exciting stuff about our own solar system and how life may have been distributed. So I think we're really in for some exciting times in those areas.
Jim, obviously you papered the term, the cold detection survey that you did on how to detect life outside in the universe. How would you have used AI, or would you use AI alongside the cold detection skill that you set up?
Well, the scale called COLD, C-O-L-D. Everybody loves acronyms in NASA, so that includes me. COLD stands for the confidence of life detection. All right, and that scale really is all about, once we see something, that we call a biosignature. And it turns out a biosignature doesn't mean it's generated by biology, so it's kind of a misnomer. I don't know of a biosignature that doesn't have some alternate way where the environment without intelligent life can generate it. All right. And so you have to be more and more confident that what you're measuring is indeed life. And so you need a scale. So you need to make more measurements, and maybe in particular areas that are where this first biosignature was found. You need to verify that it's there. You need to verify the environment can provide the resources necessary. So it means that you got to have the food, you got to have the energy, you've got to have the solvent, whether that's water or some other liquid. And you got to have a concept of the evolution of that area over time that allows life to have sprung up and survived and grown in that particular area. And that's what the cold index is all about. So finding a biosignature is cold index 1, but actually finding life is cold index 7. And so you got all these steps to do. Now, when we make measurements, and we indeed get that data, the concept of giving that to an AI platform for which it then can be compared with other measurements that have been made. It then can be compared with how the context of those measurements were made, could help actually in the definition of what you have done as a cold index. So I'm happy that we're at this location for which more data can be available, and then that is used in some analysis that can determine the cold index And then you can properly think about what the next steps are in terms of what observations do you need to rise it from a cold level 3 to a cold level 4, as an example. You have to do certain things and certain analysis. And here again, AI could help with giving suggestions, giving approaches, saying, oh, you really need measurements in this area because that's what will enable you to go to the next step. Or it can tell you, that's not possible at the moment without a spacecraft, without something new. You got to be a bigger mirror. You got to look at it, stare for longer. You know, those are important analyses for which AI has an opportunity to provide you input as part of that overall analysis.
So basically, Jim, it's not dying. The bubble isn't bursting. It's evolving, and we should be prepared and really take the opportunity.
Of course. Yeah, I think what's being referred to more than anything else is, of course, this kind of capability has monetary value. And the monetary value can be recouped and realized when the capability becomes more and more mature. We're always quick to invest without being quick to analyze, is it the right investment? And sometimes in overinvestments, you end up making mistakes because it's not mature enough. You know, you have to, as an individual, make your own decisions on how fast the things are being developed. You know, we just heard clips that, you know, Bill Gates says, oh yeah, AI is tremendously important. And you know, Elon has said, oh, it's everything. And, you know, but it's not that today. It's going to be that perhaps in the future, but the future is that a few years away or 10 years away. So we want companies to move out and leverage this capability and build things and do things and leave that analysis capability to mature to the heights that we need it to be able to do the kind of things that we envision. It just takes time, and this is, I think, the normal cycle of things.
All right. Well, we're gonna make sure that Jim gets to have some kind of a lunch, considering he's got like 20 minutes left. With that,
I'm having my French fries right now as we speak.
There you go. As we speak. So I want to thank all of you, Jim. It's been a pleasure again. It's a great topic, but I think this is getting really, really interesting with all the things that are going to be possible. I want to share this clip briefly just to give people a perspective. And again, it's just a thought. I'm very cautious of saying that this is how it's going to be, but let me share this with you.
This ChatGPT thing. And all of a sudden, within the last 18 months, Google has now re-engineered its entire product line. As Satya Nadella said, we're going to make them dance. But it's not just Google, it's everybody. This is a harbinger of things to come. It will be for everyone who is going to be playing in this game. And the fun thing to note is that these models are improving with their capabilities and capacity by 5 to 10x per year. So if we take that exponential in mind yet again, we are looking at a minimum of 3,125 times better than they are today, or 100,000 times better than they are today by this date in 2029, 5 years from now. So if you're looking at imagery and saying, it has a sixth finger, I think it might be able to figure that out when it's 100,000 times better than it is today. Let that sink in, though, because as we interact with these chatbots, these models, imagery, and we're prompting with these things, you might have issues with the state of where it is and think, okay, this isn't working. It'll never get there. The second someone says it'll never get there, come on. The rate of change is so fast, it's so fast. We've already seen things go from wildly underrated to Sora level quality in just a couple years.
What do you think, Jim? I do believe to a certain extent, you know, unless something really drastic happens, things are just going to keep expanding and
they will. They will. Whether they meet the model prediction that was discussed or not, they're going to indeed affect our life. So the more we learn about them, the more we use them, and use them appropriately, because we know their limitations and how that changes over time, the better. I would like to think he's correct. He's either ultra optimistic or he's not optimistic enough, and only time will tell.
True. With that, we're going to let you all go. Thank you so much for all of you been watching. It's been a great crowd, actually. Thank you for watching this session. Jim's currently busy teaching a whole cohort and going to try to fit in some lunch. So thank you so much, Jim, for being here, and everybody else watching the session. Really looking forward to bringing out some future episodes. Going to be some great guests, and we'll get Jon back with that. So with that, Jim, I'm going to let you enjoy your day. It's great to know you're having a great time with all your students. I know it's a passion of yours. And for all the guests, have a wonderful evening. Take care.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye now.